Welcome to this explainer. We are jumping right into the literal engine of life on Earth today to see exactly how solar energy drives the entire physical living world around us. By the time we wrap up, you're going to see nature not just as a random collection of plants and animals, but as this highly structured, brilliantly efficient economic system that is driven entirely by the light of the sun.
Okay, so let's start with a massive, undeniable truth straight from our source material. The health and sustainability of every single ecosystem is primarily driven by the input of solar energy. I mean, everything we're about to discuss, every leaf, every branch, every animal, starts right here. The sun is the ultimate power source, funding the vast biological economy of our planet. Without it, the engine simply doesn't run.
Section 1. The Engine of Life. How solar energy becomes physical reality.
So how exactly do invisible rays of light turn into, say, a huge rainforest or a massive coral reef? Well, we have to look at the very foundation of primary production. And the absolute core currency of our explainer today is biomass. It's essentially the physical, living matter created when plants harness the sun's power through photosynthesis. Think of it as the physical embodiment of trapped sunlight. It's organic matter generated over a very specific area and time. And understanding biomass is absolutely the key to understanding how ecosystems actually function and sustain themselves.
Now, scientists don't just guess at this, they quantify it super meticulously. They measure it in two main ways: by physical weight, specifically grams per square meter per year, or in pure energy terms, using kilocalories per square meter per year. These precise measurements allow biologists to calculate the exact flow of energy and evaluate the overall health of an ecosystem. It really lets us see how nature operates essentially like a strict business budget, calculating its revenues and its unavoidable expenses.
Which brings us to Section 2. Gross versus net productivity. Nature's budget.
It really helps to split this into two separate concepts. Think of gross primary productivity, or GPP, as the plant's gross revenue, the absolute total organic matter generated through photosynthesis. But net primary productivity, NPP, that's what is left over after the plant pays its own biological survival tax. You know, the energy it has to consume itself during its own respiration just to stay alive. It all boils down to this super elegant formula: NPP equals GPP minus R. That R stands for respiration losses. So NPP is basically the pure net profit of the ecosystem's energy budget. And this isn't just some boring botanical trivia. This specific net profit reveals the exact amount of newly created biomass that is actually available to be passed on to the rest of the biological community. And that profit? It is incredibly important for fueling the rest of the ecosystem.
Moving on to Section 3, Fueling the Food Web, Secondary Productivity.
Following that energy flow, once the primary producers create that vital biomass profit, we hit secondary productivity. That's step 2, where herbivores eat those plants, and the organic matter literally becomes incorporated into the herbivores' own bodies. And then, step 3, that energy is passed right up to decomposers and higher consumers higher up the food web. Every single animal, yeah, us included, absolutely relies on these foundational steps. But, if you look around your local environment, or even just watch a nature documentary, you'll immediately notice that nature does not grow at the same speed everywhere, right? So what's actually controlling the throttle on this biological engine?
Let's look at Section 4, the rules of growth. What controls the engine?
The sheer amount of biomass an ecosystem can effectively pump out varies wildly depending on a really strict set of environmental factors. The specific plant species present, hugely important. But equally crucial are the physical conditions. We're talking temperature and moisture levels. Those literally dictate how fast photosynthesis can safely occur. Add in light availability, which ties right back to our solar engine, and nutrient availability in the soil. All these pieces interlock perfectly to dictate how efficiently an ecosystem can produce that precious biomass. Okay, so we've got the local picture. Let's shift our perspective and zoom all the way out to evaluate the productivity of the entire planet.
Section 5. The Great Ocean Paradox. The global scale of biomass.
When you look at this globally, the numbers are just staggering. I mean, take a second to let this figure sink in. 170 billion tons. Globally, Earth is cranking out an estimated 170 billion tons of dry organic matter in net primary productivity every single year. That is the grand, combined planetary profit of all our forests, grasslands, and oceans working together.
But, and this is where we hit a massive biological mystery, that 170 billion tons, it is definitely not split evenly. Get this, even though oceans cover about 70% of the Earth's surface, they massively lag behind terrestrial land masses. The oceans are only contributing about 55 billion tons to that global total, while the land is doing the heavy lifting with a massive 115 billion tons.
Which brings us to a final, pretty provocative question. We just went over the rules of growth, right? Temperature, moisture, light, nutrients. So, if the oceans utterly dominate our planet's surface area by a massive 70%, what specific environmental factors are keeping their marine productivity comparatively so low? Why exactly does the water lag so far behind the land? That's something to chew on. Thanks for joining me.